At family dinner, my brother sneered. Some people just love being needed, even when they're not. Everyone turned to me. I raised my glass and said, Good news then, I'm not. Then I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and froze the account funding his rent. 5 minutes later, he was pale. My mom whispered, What did you just do? I smiled and shocked them with my answer. I'll start with this. I was the one who paid the rent on my brother's apartment for the last 8 months. And not because I wanted to, but because every time I hesitated, my mom would call, text, guilt trip, ask how I could possibly sleep at night knowing he had 2 kids and a wife and was doing his best. The wife part was always slipped in like a side note, even though she hadn't worked in over 3 years and made it clear she never planned to. So yeah, I covered the $2,300 rent. Every month. On time. Without so much as a thank you text. It was a Sunday night. My mom's birthday. We were packed into her dining room, with the same people who always show up for these things. Uncle Greg from Colorado who talks too much about real estate, my cousin Derek who thinks he's the next big YouTuber, and Grandpa, who rarely says anything but never misses a single detail. My brother sat 2 seats away from me, with his smug little grin, holding court like he was the one footing the bill for everyone's lives. Someone asked about his startup idea, a niche app for food delivery combined with some blockchain feature no one fully understood. Everyone politely nodded like it made sense. I stayed quiet. And then, in that tone he always used when he thought he was being clever, he said, Some people just love being needed, even when they're not. He didn't look at me, but he didn't have to. The timing, the phrasing, it was deliberate. The table went quiet. Half the people looked confused. The rest turned to me. I didn't blink. I raised my glass. Good news then, I'm not. And right there, while everyone else was frozen mid-bite or mid-sip, I took out my phone, opened the banking app, went to the recurring rent payment account, and froze it. My brother went pale. My mom laughed, a short, awkward laugh like she thought it was part of some joke. You're not actually doing that, she said. I didn't respond. I looked directly at my brother. You've got until the end of the month. After that, you're on your own. His wife shifted in her seat and muttered something I didn't catch. She didn't look at me. Then I added, Oh, and that startup? I'm out. You'll need to find someone else to throw money at your bad ideas. That got everyone's attention. My Uncle Greg blinked and finally looked up from his plate. My cousin Derek stopped scrolling on his phone. You're serious? My mother said. Dead serious, I replied. I don't owe him anything. He lives in a place he can't afford, hasn't held a stable job in years, and expects the rest of us to carry him. It's not my problem anymore. You're saying this on my birthday? She said, voice low and cold. You want me to lie on your birthday? I asked. You want me to pretend this isn't happening while he drains me dry and you cheer him on like I'm the selfish one? She glared at me, but I could tell she didn't have a comeback. For once. I looked at my brother. Your rent? Your startup? Your life? Handle it yourself. He stared at me like I just lit the table on fire. Grandpa cleared his throat quietly. Then he said something that surprised everyone. It was overdue. No one else said a word. Not even my uncle. My mom just stared, furious and quiet. My brother looked like someone had ripped the floor out from under him. I left a few minutes later, didn't even wait for dessert. By the next morning, I had 3 missed calls from my mom, 1 from my brother, and a text from his wife so long I had to scroll twice to get to the end. Most of it was emotional blackmail dressed up as concern. How could I do this to family? What would happen to the children? Didn't I know how hard things were for them? I didn't reply. Thursday was the 1st of the month. I knew what that meant. The rent was due. But I also knew them. They probably assumed I was bluffing, maybe trying to make a point. They had no backup plan. There never was one. I was the backup plan. Always had been. That night, my brother finally reached out. The message was shorter, more direct. You're not really doing this, right? I didn't answer. I let him sit with it. Friday morning, my mom called while I was in a meeting. When I didn't pick up, she tried again. I eventually stepped out and answered, thinking maybe, just maybe, she'd come to her senses. Nope. What are you doing to this family? She snapped, skipping past hello like always. You're turning your back on your own blood. I'm just stopping something that should have never started, I said. I never agreed to support 3 adults indefinitely. They're not just adults. They have children. And I'm not the father. That stunned her into silence for maybe 2 seconds before she launched into a tirade about how I think money fixes everything. And don't understand real responsibility. Real responsibility. From the woman who coddled her 37-year-old son like he was a lost teenager. From the woman who never once asked him where his money was going, or why he had none. I let her go on until she got tired, then said, "You can keep calling me selfish, or you can start asking why your grown son has a nicer apartment than I do and still needs me to keep the lights on." She hung up. No goodbye. Saturday came and went. Quiet. Then Sunday afternoon, Uncle Greg called. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. He said, "I just want you to know, you did the right thing." I was quiet for a second. "Really?" "Yeah," he said. "Someone finally had to." Apparently, I wasn't the only one tired of the way things were. He told me Grandpa had made a comment after I left the birthday dinner, something about how it was about time someone stood up to the circus. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but it meant more than I expected. Then came Monday. Rent bounced. And just like that, my brother's calm unraveled. I didn't hear it from him directly, not at first. It was his wife who messaged me first, probably thinking she could guilt-trip me better than he could. She accused me of everything under the sun, selfishness, cruelty, classism, yeah, that one came out of nowhere, and even financially endangering minors. As if I were the one who decided to raise kids without a job or a plan. I read the whole thing and answered with one line. "It's not my job to pay for your life." That set her off. Another barrage of texts came in, this time angrier, sharper, but still completely missing the point. She said they'd talk to a lawyer. That I'd regret this. And my favorite part. "I hope you can live with yourself." I could. Easily. Because what they didn't realize yet was that this wasn't a phase. I wasn't going to swoop in at the last second and fix things. The money wasn't paused, it was gone. The deal was off. The payments were dead. And the clock was ticking. They had 20-something days before things got real ugly with the landlord. And if they couldn't scrape together the cash, they'd have to go somewhere else. Smaller, cheaper, less glamorous, real. The deposit? Lost. I knew that. $2,000 I'd never see again. But that was the price of the line I drew in the sand. And this time, I was holding it. Now they had to figure it out without me. They didn't leave right away. They stayed, clinging to that apartment like something was going to magically reverse itself. I think they really believed I'd cave. That I'd wake up one day, feel guilty, and send the rent like nothing happened. They had no backup plan. No savings. No timeline. They just kept living there, full volume, full denial. My brother was still posting on Instagram like everything was fine. A quote from some entrepreneur one day, a picture of him scribbling notes on a napkin the next. "Productivity mode activated," he captioned one of them. I remember laughing, because I knew for a fact he'd spent most of that day sitting in his car behind the strip mall near his old gym, doing nothing. Meanwhile, his wife started dropping comments in the family group chat. Stuff like, "Some people only give when it makes them feel superior." Or, "Interesting how the richest among us are also the coldest." No names, of course, but it was clear who they were aimed at. I didn't say a word. Neither did anyone else. I think they expected someone to rally behind them, or at least guilt me into reversing course. But the family was silent. That part caught them off guard. I don't think they realized how many people were quietly tired of their act. The second week of the month came, and with it, the first real signs of panic. My brother texted, "Okay. I need help. Just this once. We're looking." No greeting. No apology. Just, "We're looking." Like that made everything okay. I didn't reply. A day later. "I'll pay you back. I swear. We're applying for stuff." Still no reply. That's when my mom texted me for the first time since the birthday dinner. She wrote, "You've made your point. Now stop." I stared at the message for a while. I knew she didn't mean stop the drama, she meant start paying again. Just like before. Just pretend none of this happened. I left her on read. By the weekend, it got weird. I walked into my favorite coffee shop Saturday morning, and guess who was already inside? My brother's wife. Alone. No drink in her hand, no laptop, nothing. Just sitting there. She stood up when she saw me. Said something about running into me by chance, though she lives 40 minutes away. Then she launched into a speech, how the kids didn't deserve this, how I was ruining lives, how I was making a point at the expense of family. I told her flatly, "You don't get to ask me for help while insulting me in the same sentence." She said, "You can afford it, Mike." "I can afford a lot of things," I said. "But not this. Not anymore." She left after that. Stormed out, mumbling something about karma. I sat down and drank my coffee in peace. But that wasn't the end of it. On Wednesday, I got a voicemail from my brother. First half was frustration. He accused me of dragging this out and choosing pride over family. But by the second half, his voice changed. There was real desperation. He said, "Please don't do this. Just for the kids, man. Please. Just until we figure it out." Still, I didn't respond. And then, finally, Friday night, I got a call from my uncle, not Greg, the other one, David, who never usually calls about anything. He was calm. "Just wanted you to know," he said. "They're packing." I didn't say anything. He added, "They didn't pay. They're being forced out. But don't feel bad. You're the only one who's done the right thing so far." That landed harder than I expected. Saturday, they were gone. No announcement. No updates. Just silence. I didn't hear from my mom. Not even to blame me. That was the strangest part. They didn't announce where they moved, just disappeared. My mom went quiet. No dramatic monologue, no guilt trip, no updates. That was its own kind of eerie. I only found out because Derek, my cousin, messaged me on a random Tuesday evening. "Guess who's moving in above Nico's dry cleaners?" Attached was a grainy photo taken through his windshield. My brother was hunched over a mattress, dragging it up a rusty staircase while his wife stood below, shouting into her phone, the kids sitting on a pile of flattened boxes. The building looked like it hadn't seen paint since the late 90s. The railing was bent, and one of the windows was boarded up with cardboard and duct tape. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because I felt bad, I didn't. But because I knew, right then, the fantasy was over for them. No more pretending to live a life they hadn't earned. 3 days passed in silence. Then, Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from my brother. "We need to talk. I found something in the move." We hadn't spoken since that voicemail he left, the one that ended with, "Just until we figure it out." I didn't know what to expect. He called me 10 minutes later. I picked up. He sounded wired, like he hadn't slept. "I found something in one of the boxes," he said. "It was buried under old mail. You're going to want to hear this." I waited. "There was a sealed envelope addressed to Mom," he said. "It's from a law office. Dated over a year and a half ago." I opened it. I didn't say anything. "It was about Dad," he went on. "Remember that weird land thing he invested in? That plot out in Nevada he bought back in the early 2000s? Vaguely. I remembered him talking about it once, joking it was going to be worth something someday. "It was," my brother said. "The company bought it back. A quiet deal. No court, no headlines. The letter said the payout was around $63,000. Guess who signed for it?" I already knew. "Mom." He kept talking. Said he found more, receipts from a contractor, granite countertop orders, a new fridge. All dated just a few months after the letter. She hadn't told anyone. Not him, not me. She'd been sitting on money that could have helped him out. Could have taken the pressure off me. But she chose not to say a word. "She let you pay my rent," he said quietly, while she was getting a custom backsplash installed. It took me a second to respond. "That's why she went quiet," I finally said. "I think she knew it'd come out eventually," he said. "But not like this." There was a pause on the line, then he said something I didn't expect. "I'm sorry. For all of it." It hit harder than I thought it would. Maybe because I'd never heard those words from him before, not once. Or maybe because for the first time, he sounded like someone I could actually trust. We didn't talk much longer, but before he hung up, he said something else. I've got to do better. I will. I have to. That night, I got a message from Grandpa. Your mother won't pick up, it said. I think she knows we've figured it out. I didn't call her. I didn't need to. But the next day, I called someone else. A guy I knew from college, now a hiring director at a logistics company that was expanding fast. They had a management trainee program, long hours, decent pay, full benefits. Not glamorous, but real. Would you consider someone who's been a little off the radar? I asked. He laughed. We hired a guy who used to deliver groceries out of his van. What's your guy's story? He needs a second chance, I said. But he's finally ready to take it. My brother showed up to the interview in a wrinkled button-down, no tie, shoes that looked like they hadn't seen polish in a decade. But he got the job. The hiring manager called me that afternoon and said, "He's raw." But he looked me in the eye and said he's tired of failing his family. That's better than half the kids with polished resumes who've never been tested. He started the following Monday. Entry level, 48-hour weeks, hourly pay with overtime and room to move up. Not exactly glamorous, but steady. Honest. The kind of job that actually required waking up early and staying late. The kind that didn't allow much time for vague ideas about food delivery apps built on crypto tokens. He texted me on his first day. My feet hurt. But it feels weirdly good. That week, I didn't hear much from him, which was a good sign. But the silence didn't last. Friday evening, my phone buzzed. His wife. I hadn't heard from her since her dramatic exit at the coffee shop. I assume you're proud of this, she wrote. He comes home every night exhausted, and I'm stuck here with the kids while he plays worker bee. You call that help? I stared at the message for a long time. There it was. The rot. Still intact. I didn't reply. I screenshotted it and sent it to my brother. He called me 5 minutes later. I didn't know she sent that, he said. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize for her, I said. No, I do, he replied. Because she still thinks we're above all this. And I'm the one who let her think that. The next few weeks, he stuck with the job. Showed up early, stayed late. Bought a second-hand lunchbox and started packing his own food. Small stuff, but it meant something. He stopped asking for anything. Stopped hinting at anything. I even caught him telling Grandpa, in front of everyone, that he was finally learning what real responsibility felt like. That was when my Uncle Greg clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Welcome to adulthood." But his wife? She didn't change. She complained constantly, about the noise in the new apartment, about the cheap washer, about how this wasn't the life she signed up for. She made it clear she still expected things to magically go back to how they were. That someone, me, my mom, anyone, would step in and fund her return to comfort. But no one did. My mom still hadn't called. Not once. She knew we knew. Knew we'd seen the receipts. The inheritance letter. The silent betrayal. She was cornered by her own lies, but instead of owning it, she vanished. I figured she was hoping time would smooth it over. It wouldn't. Then one day, I dropped off a small package at my brother's place. He'd left a wrench in my car. Simple errand. His daughter answered the door. She was smiling. Happy. He came to the door, thanked me, and I could see something had changed. He looked tired, yes, but clearer. Like someone who'd finally stepped off the ride he'd been stuck on for years. Before I left, he said, "I've been thinking about everything you did. Everything I put on you. I wouldn't have changed if you hadn't cut me off." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. "You raised me more than anyone else did," he added. That hit me harder than I expected. But we still didn't talk about Mom. The first update. It had been 4 months since the birthday dinner. 4 months since I froze the account, since I stopped funding their lives, since my mom disappeared behind that wall of silence she builds every time reality doesn't go her way. My brother was still at the logistics job. He'd been promoted to team lead of his shift, nothing flashy, but enough of a bump that they could breathe. They'd even upgraded from instant noodles to a weekly grocery budget. His wife still didn't work. Still acted like folding laundry was martyrdom. But for once, he wasn't letting that slow him down. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, someone knocked on my door. I live in a part of the city where no one just drops by. I checked the peephole, and there she was. My mother. Hair perfect. Makeup done. The same way she used to show up at church, like someone had told her God might be watching. I opened the door. "Hi, Mike," she said, like the last 4 months hadn't happened. I didn't invite her in. I just waited. She sighed. "Can we talk for a minute?" We sat in the small courtyard outside my building, because I wasn't about to let her into my home. She started slowly, circling the conversation like a politician. "I know there's been distance," she said. "And I know things got out of hand. But I think enough time has passed. We're still family." "Is that what you came to say?" She blinked. "No. I came to say I'm sorry. For how everything unfolded. Unfolded. That was the word she picked. Not for taking the inheritance and hiding it. Not for letting me fund my brother's life while she remodeled her kitchen. Not for disappearing the moment the truth surfaced. Just sorry for how it unfolded. "I know you must have felt betrayed," she said. "Because I was," I replied. She shifted in her chair. "You don't understand what it was like. After your father passed, I didn't want to burden you boys with legal things. The money was just sitting there, and it wasn't your money," I cut in. "It was his. And he left it for us. Not for you to quietly claim while pretending you were broke. I needed it," she said. "For the house. For stability." "No," I said. "You wanted it. Big difference." She stared at me, like I was someone she didn't recognize. "I raised you," she said, her voice a little harder now. "I supported you. And this is how you repay me?" I stood up. "This is why I haven't called," I said. "You don't get it. You don't want to get it. You still think this is about money. It's not. It's about trust." She didn't follow me back to the door. She just sat there. Before I went inside, I said, "You're right about one thing. We're family. But I don't owe you anything. Not anymore." And I meant it. 2 weeks later, I got a text from my brother. "She showed up here too," it said. "Tried to offer us help. I told her we're fine." Then another text a few days after that. "Thanks for everything, Mike. You saved us." He meant it. You could tell. And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. My brother grew up. He took the hit and climbed out of it. I didn't rescue him. I gave him a reason to rescue himself. I'm proud of that. Genuinely. But my mother? We haven't spoken since. And that silence, that clean break, was the real gift I gave myself. Final update. It's been nearly a year since the birthday dinner. I haven't heard from my mother since the day she sat in my courtyard and tried to gaslight me into believing that betrayal was a misunderstanding. She didn't text for my birthday. Didn't call for Thanksgiving. Nothing. And I didn't miss it. Not once. My brother's still working at the logistics company. He recently sent me a picture of himself in a reflective vest, holding a clipboard, grinning like a teenager who just got his license. He's leaner now, too, probably the result of lifting pallets every day and not eating takeout 5 nights a week. They moved again. Not back to luxury, but to something better, cleaner, brighter, in a neighborhood with decent schools. This time, they got it on their own. No calls. No requests. No subtle pressure. His wife still doesn't work. Still throws shade at me during the rare family events I do show up to. But my brother doesn't let her complaints define him anymore. He told me that when she starts with the old blame routine, he just walks away. That alone told me everything I needed to know. A few days ago, I got a handwritten card from him. That was new. No text. No email. Just a card. Inside it said, "I know I made you the bad guy for years. You weren't. You were the only one being honest. I wouldn't have survived this last year without you, not because you saved me, but because you finally stopped." I kept that card. It's in my desk drawer. Some stories don't end with hugs and holiday dinners and perfect reunions. Sometimes they end with space, earned space, and people finally learning to carry their own weight. I don't regret what I did. Not the dinner, not the frozen account, not walking out. I'd do it all again. Sometimes, the only way to fix something broken is to stop holding it up. Let it crash. Let it sting. Let it rebuild. And if you're wondering if it was worth losing $2,000? Yeah. Every single cent.